Hi guys, we are back with another tarot unboxing and a deck review, and I've really been enjoying filming these for you guys. Anything that can give me some justification for my shopping and adding to my collection is great. I've been collecting decks not quite as long as I've been reading tarot. There's all different reasons why a person might have tarot decks, and it's not necessarily because you want to be a tarot reader. A friend of mine said just because a person collects cars doesn't mean that they drive them all the time. And it's very true. Sometimes people collect things because that's just their hobby, and especially for tarot, you're collecting the artwork, and there's so many different thousands of decks that are available that it really lends itself to a hobby for collectors. Now, my first deck that I bought it when I was a teenager, and I do plan to do a video on that specific deck, the first deck that I had, and how I got started. But I probably didn't buy another tarot deck for, gosh, I would say at least 10 years after that. That was just the one deck that I had, and it wasn't really until maybe the last 7 years that I've really started collecting decks. And fortunately, there is a lot of ways to do that, especially getting rare decks. You can find those on eBay. You can get those from those kind of secondhand sites. And just in general, it's a lot more accessible now through the internet to be able to get your hands on rare decks, on limited edition decks, and to know about decks even before they come out so you can pre-order them. So all of that has are different ways. Those are different ways that I take advantage of getting my hands on the things that I'm looking for. The deck that I am going to be reviewing for you guys today, I have no idea what it is yet because all that I have is this package that did come from eBay. So there's a good chance that this is an old deck, that this is not a currently printed deck, because it's pretty rare that I would buy a current deck on eBay unless it was something that was printed overseas and there's just no other way for me to find it. So let's go ahead and open it. Okay. It looks like there's actually two things in here. The first appears to be a book. And it looks like this is two things that go together, and a pack of cards, and I can see now that this definitely is a rare deck that is out of print that I've ordered. The internet gives us so much instant gratification these days, because I think I literally ordered this deck less than a week ago, maybe just 5 days ago, and I've already gotten it. So whoever the seller is, they're getting 5 stars. I'm going to go ahead and unwrap the book first. And I am pretty sure that this is actually not specifically a tarot deck. It's called The Pages of Shustah, Divination and Meditation Cards. And what I would qualify as a tarot deck is a standard deck with 56 minor arcana cards and 22 major arcana cards. Beyond that, there's other kinds of decks. There's oracle cards, and oracle cards can have any number of cards. Sometimes they have as few as 20, or they have 32 or 56 or even more. And they don't follow the standard tarot card numbering and suit format. And then also you can find astrology cards and other kinds of cards that serve almost more, not necessarily as divinatory cards, but kind of more like flashcards. They're just informational and they're helpful in memorizing different symbols. But I feel like this is a deck that kind of falls into its own category. Pages of Shustah, as I said, is the name. Divination and Meditation Cards. This book is actually really, really cool. Look at how the pages are done in different colors. So let's go ahead and open up this deck. And it just at very, very first glance, what I'm seeing is that the different suits in this deck, so this is a deck with suits, and they correspond to the different colors. Because at the top of each page, it says the red suit on the red pages and the green suit on the green pages. So we're going to go ahead and open this up. I am going to try and find out for you guys when this deck originally was published. It has very much what I would call like almost like an 80s kind of, I don't know, like reminds me of like the YMCA logo. Okay, 1974 by Shustah Incorporated, printed in USA by Paragon Printing Incorporated, Omaha, Nebraska. The authors of this book are Ann Manzer and Cecil North, and the drawings on the cards are by Ann Manzer. So they did a collaboration, and Ann was the artist. Now I want to talk for a second before I open these about this whole idea of buying used cards, because I know that when it comes to tarot cards, people are very, very particular about whether or not the deck is sealed. And that's one of the reasons why I tell you guys when I open these, do they have plastic wrap on them or not? Because of course if they do, that is a way to know that for sure the deck is sealed. And it's really kind of a superstitious thing. Some people feel that if you use a deck that's been used by somebody else, that potentially that deck could have some bad juju on it. You know, it's kind of like as if that deck of cards is carrying the energy of the former person that owned it. And I will tell you, I used to be really a big believer of that, and that there was no way I would want to ever even lay a finger on a secondhand deck, that was something that I didn't want to, that it wouldn't be able to work for me at all, and that it would probably have to be completely exercised before I ever even used it, and that it might actually, you know, come with some kind of bad karma or negative energy. And you know, as I tell my students, it really is not going to help you to be super superstitious when it comes to doing divination. We have to be realistic about things. And any object it doesn't have to be something magical or something like cards. Any object can carry the energy of the person who has owned it or who has even handled it before you did. That's just the way that energy works. It definitely can be transferred on items. In fact, there are people who specifically do a form of reading by feeling the energy from other objects. That's called psychometry. So somebody that does psychometry can hold something of a person's, for instance, like a piece of jewelry or their keys or their glasses, or even a photograph of that person, and they can get clairvoyant messages. They can get intuitive hits about the person who owned that or who handled that before you. So that is a thing, but the idea that that energy actually then sticks with that object and can be detrimental to a person, I think that it being extremely negative is a very, very rare thing. Not to say it's totally impossible. My belief is that anything is possible, but not that you want to be in fear of like, oh, any deck that I handle is going to have negative energy and I shouldn't use it. And you can very much clear a deck of cards from the energy that it has. You can use sage. You can use any kind of clearing method that you might be familiar with. And the other thing that I want to say about getting used decks is, you know, it might be different. The more that a deck has been used, the more that the energy of the person who used it would be imprinted on that deck. So I could imagine that if you had a deck that had been used for years and years and years by someone, first of all, it's gonna look that way. If you see my decks, if you come get a reading with me at House of Intuition and you see the deck that I read with, I've been reading with that same deck for clients now for probably about 4 or 5 years. And you can tell it looks really worn in. The edges are discolored. The cover on the colors on the back look a little bit scratched and worn off. The face of the cards has a little bit of gold ink on it, and that gold has really scratched off a lot. So it's very, very clear that this is a used, worn-in deck, and I'm sure that deck probably carries my energy very much. Now, if you acquire a deck and it looks like that, sure, you're gonna probably feel that it has someone else's energy, and that can be a good or bad thing. But when I'm buying a used deck, I'm looking to find one that is still in pristine condition. I'm not looking to find one that's been used already. And you'd be surprised, a lot of times you can find these old rare decks, for instance, a deck that was printed in 1974, where the person who got this deck really never used it, and they might have been one of those collectors, like I mentioned, where they didn't buy the deck to actually be doing readings, but they bought it because they were attracted to the artwork, and so they might have had it and just left it sitting in the box for decades. So it's not going to have too much residual energy from any other person, and I have found that it's totally acceptable to, you can definitely still get an effective reading from a deck of cards that was owned by someone else. So just don't worry that you're getting into dangerous territory if you get your hands on some used tarot cards. So now let's go ahead and open these. Okay, first I see the back of the deck, and as you can see it says Shustah Incorporated. It's got the little copyright sign down there. And let's just start with the bottom card here. It's blue, so I'm going to guess that this is the blue suit. And you can see it's this cool totem pole picture, and it has the number 1 right down here in the corner. So there's no words to indicate if this card has a name, but it's a pretty cool image, and you can definitely tell that it's been hand drawn. Let's look at the next card together. Okay, the 2. So that means that these cards are coming in order. You can see a little girl with her puppy here and her little bare legs. Apparently whoever has boxed these cards up has either put them in order or has left them in order. And it is one thing that you have to consider buying a used deck, is that you're not going to be guaranteed that that deck is complete. I have bought decks where the person who was selling them said, oh, the deck is complete, all 78 cards are there, but then when they showed up, there was definitely a missing card or 2. So you have to consider that the person selling the deck might not know exactly that what the full number is supposed to be. So I never expect that it's 100% gonna have every card there. All I can do is hope that they are. Let's look at the next card together. Okay, fish swimming, and we see 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 fish swimming in a pond, and it's the blue suit number 3. I'm not seeing any kind of theme so far in these cards as far as something that ties these cards together, other than the fact that they're all blue. So we have fish, we have a little girl with a puppy, we have this totem pole, but I'm not exactly sure, except for the fact that there's animals in all 3 of these cards. So let's go ahead and take a look at the 4th one. And here we go. There's no animals in this card. It looks like some trees, their roots growing down into water. But they do have a really cool imagery, don't they? Let's flash forward and look at the red. Okay, so here is the The 12 in the red suit, there's a horse, obviously. And 13, it looks like a little fairy sitting in the rain. Oh, look at this guy. This is 14. And he's like some kind of a king, emperor type figure. Okay, I'm just going to cut the deck once more. And here is the 11 of the green suit. There's another horse, number 12. And you can tell that some of these drawings are, they don't seem to all be done with the exact same kind of medium. Some of them are thicker lines and some of them are thin, like some might have been done in pen and some more with a brush. And then here we've got the 13, and we see some kind of, again, little fairy or angelic figure. I'm not exactly sure what this last color is. The last cards there just have a white background with black ink, and I think that in the book I did see that there's the white suit as well, but here is clearly a Taurus card. We see the sign, and we see the bull that represents Taurians. Let's look at the next one. Of course, we have Gemini. So these are very cool. These are the astrology cards. And I'm not exactly positive, but I would guess that this is the constellation that's up here. So you would have a combination of the image that represents the sign, so Gemini's the twins, then we have the depiction of the symbol of the sign, and then it looks like what I'm guessing is the constellation of Gemini, and then we would have Cancer after that, the crab, the symbol, the constellation. So these are really cool, and I'm pretty sure that these are actually the cards that I saw when I first saw these cards online, and I think it's because I was doing some writing on Capricorn or Sagittarius and ran across these images. So these are actually very cool. There's Scorpio, and we see both versions of Scorpio, the scorpion and the eagle. And then there's Sagittarius, that's the sign that the sun is in right now, the archer. Capricorn. And there's Aquarius. And finally Pisces. So we've got a few more cards because Pisces is the last sign in the zodiacal year. After Pisces, then we would have Aries. That starts up again in the end of March. So after the Pisces card, there are still 3 more cards left. Here's a moon. And this looks like, I'm not exactly sure what this card is. There seems to be a branch here. And this looks like a zodiacal, like a natal chart, but it's not really clear what this little object is. And here's the last card. Oh, the Gemini. I must have stuck that on the back there. So those last 2 cards being the sun and then some kind of a world card. So these are interesting. They're definitely their own thing. It looks like each suit goes up to the number 14. And so that would be similar to a regular tarot deck in the sense that there are the 10, 1 through 10, and then 4 court cards. Actually, remember how we saw that fairy on number 13? Let's look at 13 on another. Yep, sure enough. Okay, so there actually are court cards here. I'll try to get the glare off there. Because there's another 13 and it's a fairy, and that's why we saw 2 horses as well. The 12s look like horses, and I guess that we would equate that with knights, right? In a regular tarot deck, we always see knights riding on horses. So rather than a major arcana, we saw those astrology cards. And in the regular tarot, the cards that would correspond to the astrological signs are found in the major arcana. The difference, of course, is that there are 22 major arcana. There's only 12 zodiac signs. And it looked like we had 14 cards in that last suit. We had the 12 signs, and then we had that moon, and we had that world, which maybe that was a sun. Pages of Shustah has its national center in St. Petersburg, Florida. And there's also a note here that says, Miss Manzer, remember she was the artist, made her departure from this plane to a greater dimension January 1977. So apparently the artist actually passed away a few years after this deck was published. So it looks like, it's telling us here that the number is 70. That's how many cards there are. There's some directions for doing a spread, doing a reading. It doesn't look that different from doing a tarot reading. And it says that questions can be asked. And at the beginning of each of these sections, it explains what these different suits represent. The red suit, the red pages are cards of adversity, trouble, severity, and disappointments. The green cards are cards of development, desire, growth, and progress. And then finally, the black suit, those were the black and white cards, pages of astrological and astrometrical divination for students of astrology. So there you have it. This is the pages of Shustah. I think that overall, some of the drawings, they're not really the most intricate. As you can see, some of them are a little bit more, I don't want to say juvenile, but they're not like really super breathtaking in terms of their execution. But I do think that that this is a pretty interesting deck. I like some of this imagery a lot. I think it's interesting that they say that the red cards are the cards of challenges. And when you're doing a reading, I always find that sometimes it's the challenging cards that are the most useful. Those are the ones that are telling you what are the things that you need to work on? What are the things you need to change? Where is an area that maybe it's a hurdle in your life, but it's through overcoming those challenges and facing them head on and actually working through them. That's how we have growth in our life. That's how we actually make ourselves stronger. That's how we get to a higher level. So whenever you see difficult looking cards, when you're doing a reading, you see something and you're like, oh, I don't like the look of that. I hate this card. It has negative imagery. If you can look at that as an opportunity to actually work through something, I will tell you, you're never going to get a card that is just going to be the end of the road. There's always something that comes after that. There's always another card. And even the death card is just a point along a path. There is something that comes beyond that. So I don't want you guys to be scared of any imagery that you see in the tarot. Just keep in mind that it's always an opportunity to actually push yourself, grow, and evolve. So thanks for taking a look with me at the pages of Shustah. I'll see you guys next time.